of our district board. Please help us and guide us through these tough times, Lord, and help us to make correct decisions as you see fit, Lord, and for the protection of our teachers, our students, and all the community members, Lord. I ask all these things in your name.
Okay, we'll move to item number 3, public forum, and we do have one signed up. Not very surprising, Mr. Pointer, that you signed up to speak.
Not surprising at all.
No, it's not. So with that, you have the floor.
It's me, Alec. I'm this man. So, how are y'all tonight? You know, everybody knows that I've been speaking a lot about communication and how important I think it is. And I'm really happy to say that the district has done a lot to improve the communication with the public. Just this year, we saw the text and the emails and videos about COVID, and we saw social media being used for the announcements like the Meet the Teacher and the move-in, or the device and schedule pickup. Ms. Sajewski has done a great job responding to comments on Facebook. That's really great. And we even saw our favorite elf give us all a needed smile. That's awesome. But having said that, it baffles me that the district is doing such a great job communicating in those areas, but when it comes to communication about this body, this board, and their meetings, the district does pretty much the bare minimum. And I'm not sure why that is. If a person wants to attend these meetings and they don't want to go to the administration building every day or drive by the marquee every day or look at the school board website every day, they're not going to find out about these meetings. If a person wanted to come up and find out how their tax dollars are being spent, or advocate for their child, or just sit and listen, and they came up here on the third Monday of every month, they would have made 5 of the 17 meetings that you guys had in the last fiscal year. There were 3 months in this last 12 months of the fiscal year where there was no regular board meeting. 5 of the 9 remaining months occurred outside of the normal third Monday. There were 5 called meetings and 3 workshops. Now, I'm not unreasonable. I know that this is a volunteer board. I know that schedules change. I know that conflicts occur, and that's fine. What I'm saying is use the technology that we know that the district knows how to use to make announcements about this board meeting. Put it on the school calendar that's online. It's never on that calendar. Put it on the on the news or upcoming events. Create a text email list that can go out and say these are when we're meeting. Put it on Facebook and say this is when we're meeting. This is our regular meeting, or this is our changed meeting. We know how to do those things, and those things don't take any extra time at all. You know, I know that everybody's busy, but like I said, those things just don't take any time. It would be wonderful for transparency, and it would really help the public to know that these things are happening. Now, if they don't show up, that's on them. But you've done everything that you can, and I think that's really important. So that's really all I can say.
Okay. Item number 4, consideration resolution regarding special education services. Mr. Martin.
I'm going to remove my mask so you guys can hear me if that's okay.
And I'll do that because I can hear one word you say.
Well, I won't be speaking much.
I'm going to read this because it's a mouthful, and then I'll explain or summarize for you. Again, the subject says consideration of resolution regarding special ed or special education shared services agreement with Brazos Valley Regional Day School Program for the Deaf Shared Services Arrangement. Essentially what that is, our special ed co-op doesn't provide deaf ed services either. They have to contract out, and who they contract out with is Brazos Valley Regional Day School. And so essentially that's what this is our agreement with Brazos Valley Regional Day School, so that they can come out and provide services for any of our deaf students that need deaf ed. So I just recommend that the board approves this resolution so that we can get it signed and back to them, so we have that agreement when the school year starts.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the special ed shared services agreement.
Okay, motion by Tammy. Second by Lou. Open for discussion. Is there any discussion on the item? I'll try to speak louder. Is that better?
That's a lot better. I couldn't hear her.
There's, whatever that's over here is like making a noise.
So, any discussion? No discussion, those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 5, consideration of resolution of the board regarding exclusion from extracurricular activities and elective courses.
Okay, this resolution stems from what TEA and UIL passed on to school districts concerning remote learners and COVID and the pandemic. Essentially what TEA said and UIL said is that remote learners can still be allowed to participate in extracurricular activities, but they also allowed local districts to make the decision to exclude them. So they kind of left it to local decision. If you wanted to say remote learners, those learning at home, not attending school face-to-face, would be excluded from extracurricular activities. As you look through this resolution, there's kind of 3 options there. I'll try to explain them the best I can, as well as my legalese can speak. Option 1 is just, it's coming out and saying if a student is participating in all remote instructional methods, so they're doing synchronous or asynchronous, we've talked about that term already, but they're not here learning face-to-face every day, that the board would shall not permit them to participate in extracurricular activities. And it just leaves it as that. But we go on to look at option 2 and 3. And where option 2 and 3 come from, I think, is a lot of times you have kids that are taking that elective course, and the elective course, an expectation of that course, or a requirement of that course is that they participate in the extracurricular activity. The best examples I can think of would be athletics. So you have a kid in the 8th period athletics. Well, they are expected to, and part of what the course is that you would participate in basketball, baseball, volleyball, track, whatever it is, or band, even band. We have 3rd period band class at the secondary. The main expectation of that band class is that you participate in marching band. So you'd be there Friday night marching at the games. You'd go mid-October to do the marching contest, UIL marching contest. So what option 2 and 3 does is it excludes those remote learners not just from the extracurricular activities, but also from the elective course. So in other words, if we just chose option 1, what you could have is a kid that signed up for a 3rd period band class, but they're a remote learner. So if we just chose option 1, they're not allowed to march. They're not allowed to participate in that extracurricular activity, but they're still sitting in the course, because they chose that as an elective class. So option 2 means as a district we wouldn't even put those kids in those elective classes because they can't participate in the activities that go with the course. If that makes sense. And so the difference between option 2 and option 3 is simply the timeline. And so the way this would work too, if you're taking an elective course at the secondary and let's say taking any elective course secondary and you choose to be a remote learner, after the first 6 weeks, you want to come do face-to-face. That's fantastic. We'd love for you to be here, come to school. But when you come here, we can't just put you in a different elective. The reason being is you will not get credit for that course because you haven't been in it long enough. So whatever remote elective you were taking is what you'll take when you come to class. Okay? So just understanding that. So the difference between option 2 and option 3 is that in option 2, you would not participate in the extracurricular activity for that 6 weeks that you were remote learning, and you wouldn't be in that elective for that same amount of time, both a 6 weeks grading period. Option 3 says that you're not in that extracurricular activity for that grading period, but then the elective course, you're not in it for the duration of the course. In my mind, that's best because you're not going to put them in that course when they get on campus because they're not going to meet the 90% attendance requirement to get credit. And I think that's probably clear as much.
So is that a end of course, the duration of the course, is that semester long, is that year long?
It would, probably most of our electives could be semester long. And no matter, even if it was a year-long elective, they could still get a half credit if they joined at semester. Band, it wouldn't be an issue. They would come and they would start band class mid-semester. So they'd still get a half credit of fine arts, I guess. And in this case, let's say we took a band kid and we chose option 3. They chose remote learning for the first 6 weeks. They're at home, they're doing their thing. They decide to come to school, we welcome them with open arms. When they get here for the second 6 weeks, they're still not in third period band class, but they can go to practice, they can participate. I guess maybe a better, because band only practices after school 1 day a week. So maybe a better example there is football. So when that kid comes the second 6 weeks, they're not in athletic period, but they can still come to after school practice and participate. So it's not completely excluding them, but it would make no sense for us to put them in that elective course because they're not going to get their PE credit.
So option 3 has the most.
Yes, sir. I think it makes the most sense for us, and that would be my recommendation if that's the route you guys want to go, and that we require students to be at school face-to-face learning if they're going to participate in extracurricular activities.
Now, in option 3, though, does that mean when they come back to school?
Yes, sir.
They're not going to be in the elective, but they're able to go to practice after school?
Correct.
Are they able to go to the game?
Correct.
Okay, so they're able to play as long as they're enrolled in face-to-face?
Yes, sir. And we have that from time to time when things are, I guess, whatever we remember normal being. Sometimes you have a kid that wants to play baseball or basketball and wasn't in that elective when the school year started. We don't hold that against them. They're still allowed to participate. They're just not in that athletic period. So they go after school, they still go to games, they still participate as much as possible. They're just not sitting in that athletic period.
Where are we at number-wise looking with the remote learner?
Last time I checked it, we had 86% participation. So it's like we're sitting around 486 or something like that replied, which I thought was a very good response to the survey. And of that 86%, I think we were sitting at 8% being remote learners. And just talking to other districts, other superintendents that I know, I think that's a really good percentage of people that plan to come to face-to-face for us. So, like I said, I think it was 8, it might have made it up to 10%. So it was just under 50, I think it was like 47 or something like that. But again, it just depends on what time of the day you check it.
Right.
So.
So explain that option one more time.
Option 1 would just be that the kid cannot participate in the extracurricular activity as long as they're a remote learner. So they may choose band as an elective. We can still put them in the course. They wouldn't be allowed to go to Monday night practice or to march on Friday nights. So what we would have to figure out is how do we accommodate that remote learner for band class. That would be an example. Another example is if you take a football player. What are we going to do? What remote learning are we going to provide for them for 8th period athletics? That's if we choose option one. That's how it works. Our coaches, teachers, directors, staff still have to figure out what does that elective look like with remote learning.
And then just for clarification, the first 6 weeks, if they elect to do remote learning,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, are we going to require anything for them to come in, like at the next 6 weeks? Like, you know, they're cleared from COVID, we're going to ask a survey, we're going to, whatever. I guess my question is, how are we going to allow these kids to go backwards and forth?
Per grading period. So if someone chooses to be a remote learner when school starts, they are a remote learner for the first 6 weeks. As we approach the end of the second 6 weeks, since we're a small enough district, we'll probably reach out to every individual and ask them, are you going to remain a remote learner, or do you plan on coming back face to face? And that's why that option 2 and 3 play a role, is if you have that remote learner, we just have to be very careful in the electives we schedule for those remote learners and what their schedule looks like, because it's got to match up with face to face. So when they come back, they're not losing any credits because they've been sitting in the same course for 6 weeks. So that's something we're trying to be very cognizant of as we create their schedules. We're taking into account first day of the second 6 weeks, they may be back with us. Is this schedule going to work on campus as well? So as we're building their remote schedules, we're building it as if they were on campus so that it will match up when they come back. But it's by 6 weeks. So, and they could come to school for the second 6 weeks and decide, you know what, I still feel uncomfortable. Okay, we're still here for you. We understand you're going to be a remote learner for the third 6 weeks. Now, there's always going to be special situations that's not going to hold someone to an entire 6 weeks. Like if you're just required to quarantine for 10 or 14 days or whatever the official number is now, depending on which organization is posting it. But if you just have to go quarantine for 10 days, we're not telling you go quarantine for 10 days and then you're there until the end of the third 6 weeks. No, come on back if you want to come back. So there's going to be things like that. I mean, we have a student that we know is going to be out for medical reasons already. And I shared with them, hey, it's a blessing you have remote learning this year. You don't have to try to get in touch with Miss Darby, to get in touch with the teachers, to get the work, to come by and pick it up. It's all right there. It's generated for you. So hopefully that kid won't fall behind. But obviously whatever amount of time they're out for medical reasons, when they're released, they're able to come back. We're not going to hold them to that 6 weeks grading period.
On the replies you got, is it the people, are they worried about the virus itself or the guidelines they're going to have to go by, or is it just because they like the remote learning? I mean, where are we at?
That's a good question, Mr. Evans, and if I responded one way or the other, I might be lying to you. I've honestly only looked at who's coming, who's not coming, so I apologize for not knowing all the data. That's a good question, though.
The teachers, how are they, do they have any input and or opinions on these 1, 2, or 3 options?
On this, the coaches that I talked to really support the idea of the district saying you have to be a face-to-face learner in order to participate. I talked to Mr. Ferguson at length, and he was a big supporter of this. And I really like the mindset he had was if ag, FFA stuff brings a kid to school, which is the best place for them to learn, he said, I'm all part of this policy. If someone's considering being a remote learner but wants to be a part of this and that's what gets them the face-to-face learning, he said go for it. He was a big advocate for this.
Any other questions? So you're proposing option 3, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you make a motion to go along with Mr. Martindale's suggestion, we would need to include in the motion that we would be exercising option 3 in the resolution.
I'll make a motion for option 3.
We have a motion by Danny, a second by Lou. Those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 6-0. I lost my agenda, where we are? Call me, item number 6.
Yes, I'm sorry. This goes hand in hand with comments. So August is always a tricky month for us with the board meetings because we've got to propose a tax rate and come back and adopt an official tax rate, and there has to be a time period in there where our proposed tax rate is published in the newspaper and so forth. So what has typically been done in the month of August, well, first off, we need to schedule our first board meeting, so I'm asking them that we call or approve a called meeting for August 13th. That's when we'll do our proposed tax rate, and then we would finalize that on August 27th. And so by having a board meeting on August 27th, I'm asking that we cancel the regular meeting on August 17th. So just asking we have two called meetings, August 13th and 27th, and that we cancel the third Monday of the month, August 17th, in order to get our tax rate and budget approved in the appropriate timelines. I'll miss that.
So,
Do we want to mention that?
Yeah, and we do have a budget workshop scheduled for Monday at 8 a.m. And that is because the entire world is back and going crazy and people have things going on. So if need be, I guess I could create a Zoom link. It's going to be tough because it's got to be posted by 8 in the morning.
What if we just record it?
I'll record it and we'll post it on the website for those that can't make it to the 8 o'clock Monday budget workshop. It'll be right here in this format.
that's the 10th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So move the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Tammy. Second. Scott, any discussion on meeting dates? Those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 6-0. I think that's it. Need a motion to adjourn? A motion by Tammy, second by Luke. Those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 6-0. Scott, I need you to sign something, and I need Tammy and you to sign something. Did you get that option 3 on that motion?
Yes, I did. I added to what was on the agenda, so I added this option. And then I also added on this for item 6 to cancel the 17th meeting, but to add the budget workshop meeting.
This is.